Last week, I was able to watch The Black Phone 2. Here are my thoughts on it. Hi, my name is Nathan. I like to talk about a lot of movies on this channel. If you're here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of The Black Phone 2 over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. And with all that said, let's just get straight into the review, starting with the good. And when it comes to this film, the thing that just stands out to me about this film when you compare it to the first film is that it is very much a more artistic film than the first film is. Especially when they cut to the old dream sequences in the film, as the lead character is now Finney's sister Gwen. She has these dreams that are showed with like old film footage, gives kind of a new aesthetic to the film that wasn't really there in the first film, and it was a more artistic, more interesting flair to go with things, especially how the way they visualize the dream sequences is. Also, it's an interesting expansion of the Gwen character, where the Gwen character in the first film was this character who'd always seen visions, but she wasn't the lead of it, she wasn't the one kind of that we were invested in, and here, we're more invested in this character as she learns more about how the grabber ties into her family's past, things like that are more interesting for the character itself in this film rather than it was in the first film. Adding to that, it is much larger in scale than the first film, which gives it a new flavor. What you want to do with sequels normally is to have something fresh and new go into the mix, and that's what this movie kind of did. It did something fresh and new with the concept. Maybe not all of it worked for me, but it is a much larger in scale film, as the first film was just a small, self-contained story set in a basement. Very simple story where a kid's trying to escape and there's some supernatural elements to it. It's more like a supernatural thriller, the first film is, where like it's like a thriller with some ghost elements in it. Well, this one very much is taking influence from Nightmare on Elm Street, which I think works well enough. If you're going to do a modern day version of Nightmare on Elm Street and have the grabber in it, I feel like this is an okay enough version of it. Also, I don't really know like that. I don't have much more positive things to say about this movie, so let's move on to the bad. There are a lot of people online absolutely loving this movie, saying it's better than the original, and saying it's very good. I, however, am a bit more negative on the film, as I thought the film was fine, but I didn't necessarily feel like it needed to exist. And that comes to the core of sequels like this, where a movie becomes successful, gets great reviews, so then they just put out a sequel. And that was the case with another Blumhouse movie, Megan 2, earlier this year for me. That is kind of the same case here with The Black Phone 2, where it just felt like a very forced sequel that didn't need to exist. The first film was just this very simple story about a kid trying to escape a basement. Now we're going off to camp, and then we're diving deep into the lore of this kidnapper and how he ties into the past of the family. Sometimes villains are more interesting when they're just these mysterious characters. And it adds a whole layer of lore and backstory that I don't really care for, and how he ties into the suicide of the children's mom and things like that, and how he's the original set of grabber kills that I simply just don't care for. That's not what was interesting about the first film. And that's certainly not what's interesting about this film to me. It feels like they were trying to force the grabber into another horror icon, the way that Jason, Michael, like, just weaved in so seamlessly. Where Jason and Michael and Freddy and Ghostface and all those characters, they became horror killer icons right out of the gate. Like, you remember them. And this feels like it's trying to force what came so naturally with those characters, and I don't think that it really works, because it's a sequel that feels entirely unnecessary. The first film didn't open itself up for a sequel, and having seen the sequel, I don't really feel like it's necessary either. The grabber in this film also is just not nearly as intimidating as he is in the first film, whereas in the first film, It was a kid trapped in a basement, and every single scene that the grabber showed up in was scary. You felt a sense of danger every time he showed up. A very cool character in the first film. Now he shows up kind of like so much, and also too little at the same time. I wish there was more of him, but also he just seemed like a knockoff of Freddy Krueger, going back to what I said earlier about it being sort of a derivative version of A Nightmare on Elm Street, because it kind of is that. There's these dream sequences, he's attacking people and invisible, and he's just not that intimidating, because the ending of this film, the finale, basically, like, it doesn't ever feel like he's an actual threat in this film. It doesn't ever feel like he's this intimidating presence all throughout the film. It just feels like whenever he shows up, he's there, but you don't necessarily feel any of the tension for the characters whenever he does show up. And that just kind of goes into the fact that it just is something that didn't need to exist. It's not bad, but it's also not very good to me. Like, it's not a horribly made film, but I just don't ever imagine myself rewatching this movie over the first one, because the first one was just such a simple, effective story, and I think this one was trying to overthink it, trying to force the grabber into something he was simply not. So overall, I have to give this movie a C+. And if you love this movie, a lot of people online are loving this movie, that is very cool. I hope you go out and see it and enjoy it. I just didn't have that experience with the film, so down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Black Phone 2 over on my channel. There's more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.